shields, but more importantly, we're going to talk about the whole use of them. And a couple of the things that we have to deal with, especially in the SEA, on the different types of shields and how they fight each other. We're a very unique group because we're doing something that has never ever been done before. We're taking not only different armor types, and different weapon types, and different weapon systems, but we're placing them, as anachronists as we are, we're placing them in time periods that had nothing to do with each other. And we're finding out the results, which is pretty interesting. But because of that, we also find out a lot of the similarities between them. For instance, you're taking a Viking center grip from the 9th or 10th century, and you're fighting with a heater shield from the 13th century, when the two never existed in time or fought each other. And you're having to, especially in the situations that they did fight each other with, you're seeing the results of those two. You know, it's a much more hands-on version of Deadliest Warrior, I guess, but with not the budget or the ballistic gel. And so what we find about these things is all shields have strengths and weaknesses. And because of that, we have to learn our own equipment. Too many times we go out there and fight, and not only are we trying to better ourselves by going to practice, but we're trying to figure it out as we go along, like everybody does. But we never really get a good grasp of what we're using, what they're using, and memorizing it as an art, and fighting it as an art. And that creates difficulty, because a lot of times we'll go into a match, the pass will begin, the fight will start, somebody dies, and you're like, oh, I won it. Awesome. And you walk off. This should never occur. You should intend the death of everybody you're fighting. It should be surgical, it should be precise, and it should be completely intended from beginning to end. That's how a fight should progress. And oftentimes, you know, especially with the new fighters, we see somebody calls lay on, they march, they get about this close, and they start swinging until somebody dies, which is a great way to start when you have fun. But once you want to start progressing with your fight, you want to know more about the fight, and you want to know more about why you're doing what you're doing. As any martial artist, we're always interested in not only the function, but the form itself. How can we practice this and replicate it? More importantly, how can we teach it to somebody who's just starting in an easier method, so they don't have to go through the 20-some years and thousands of miles and how many broken shields to figure out 2 years later, oh, that's what I was supposed to be doing. How can we condense that down? It is something that someone can understand, can replicate and repeat over and over again. And not necessarily make automatons of fighters, but give them a body of knowledge that's basic. One of the things in the SEA that we have a lot of hard time with is we call everything by different names. One person's A range, D range, E range is another person's aardvark range. Yes, I've heard aardvark range. Mississippi, not kidding. You know, and so we have all these different terminologies, thumb down, you know, Wuga, Milanese, all these different types of techniques and names for them. Just like any profession, there's a ton of different names for them. Everybody calls it by their short name. But because of that, you can't go from one area to the other and get the same amount of instructions, right? And so one of the things that I've tried to do over the last 10 years has been develop a system of actually teaching basics. I do that because when I first started in the SEA, I fell in love with it, like we all do. I fell in love with chivalry, I fell in love with courtesy, I fell in love with the idea of being a knight. But coming from an Asian-style martial arts background, one of the first things I noticed was we don't know how to teach it. One of the things, and some do, but for the most part, we get a lot of folks out there, we get together, and a new person comes out, we hand them a sword, hand them a shield sometimes, and we say, okay, get into a stance that's comfortable. This is comfortable for me. I can sit like this all day. But it's not necessarily a good stance for me to fight in. I'm probably going to die quickly. And so, just from the very basics, from the feet up, being able to talk to somebody and explain to them why you're doing stance, while you're doing the position, while you're doing what you're doing with the shield, is very, very important. Because whatever you're telling them in the very beginning, they're going to relate to for every single thing they do later. Think of what your profession is, what you do for a living. If you started that profession by not learning any of the basics and went right to, say, the middle of it, you wouldn't be as creative as you are in the profession as you are, because you don't have any basics to rely on. You don't have any foundation to rely on. And for too many fighters and too many people in what we do, that's the case. We let fighters go out there and start flopping around, and they're not understanding what they're doing. When they get a hit, they get one. It's great. They don't know why. And oftentimes, we have fighters that will come off the field and can't articulate it very well. But not everybody has to. And there are a few common things that we can talk about, that we can go through, that are truisms for a lot of what we do. It doesn't matter what style. Now, today we are not going to go into power generation and how to throw a blow. I don't even want any part of that myself, because how I throw a blow in power generation is probably different from most of it. It probably ends up in the same place, but there's a lot of reasons why we all do our different things. A lot of them are cultural. A lot of them are, something that the people fighting before us in the kingdom developed, and we go with it. And I am not of, anybody's school. I'm not of Paul's school. I'm not of Sean's school. I'm not any of those schools. I have a completely different method. And after class or in the breaks, if you want to talk to me about it, that's great. We can do that. But what we're going to talk about is what we're seeing. The other thing that we do not address a lot, doesn't mean it never happens, but we don't address a lot, is what our opponent is using. And we always say, check out your opponent, right? See what they're doing. But do you know why they're using what they're using? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of what they're using? You must learn all the strengths and weaknesses of every weapon system you have, right? I'm a very big fan of one mind and a weapon. And because of that, we have to learn and develop an understanding of every single thing we see in front of us. Not just, what is it, okay, we fight that big shield like this, but where is it weak? Why is it there? And how are they going to use it? And how can we use it against them? And too many times we bypass that part. We don't see it for what it is. We don't always throw for their weak lines. This type of philosophy is kind of unique. In my experience of 33 years now, every martial art I've ever encountered is developed by what the defense of the opponent is. Every single one. You're always attempting to beat the defense of the opponent. That's truism in every martial art I've ever studied. And so, what we have to look at is why it's weak, and attack that weakness every single time. It's what martial arts are based on. You don't throw a lock to a position that the hand bends to already. You throw a lock to the position where the hand doesn't. Just like you shouldn't throw a blow to a place where the shield is strong already, you should throw a blow always to where the shield isn't strong, where it's weakest. Now, we're going to get into the strengths and weaknesses of the shield in a second, but the first thing we have to talk about is the first defense. And the first defense is measure. People call it range. Measure is a concept that's been talked about in every martial art in history. The Japanese call it the ma'a. The Europeans call it simply measure. But we have to remember we're talking about Aristotle's measure. In Aristotle's world, time, space, angle is linear. It wasn't screwed up by Einstein later making everything relative. In other words, time-wise, you could sing, row, row, row your boat this fast, or this fast, speed metal version. And it's the same song. When you're talking about measure, you're talking about three components: distance, time, and length. This is your first defense. Before it ever gets to a sheet, this is your first defense. So, Melissa's standing here, and I'm standing here, and we're 10 feet apart. If I walk towards her, it can take 3 seconds. If I run towards her, it'll take a second. It's the same distance. And one of the things that we talk about, when you hear, I know Sean talks a lot about range, right? I'm much more simpler than that. Either you're in measure or you're not. Once measure is crossed, just think of it as a big, huge pond with a huge bloody shark holding its mouth up right here. Once you step into that range or that measure, you're both in danger. Both of you can die. And you must treat it so. And so when you step into that measure, you must feel the danger and understand that there's a threat all the way in. Once you've come up to that person and you can't go forward anymore, closed measure. You can't go forward. That's it. So either you're in it or you're not. You can reach them or you can't. And so when Fiore or Talhofer or Pauluscal or any of the masters were talking about measure, they were talking about, can you touch them with the sword or can you not? And that's exactly how every master has described it in history. The cool thing about the SCA is for 40 plus years, we've been developing through practical activity what the masters had said 800 years ago. And the great thing about it is a lot of things that we see, that we developed over the years with axe handles and carpet wood and carpet armor and, you know, Freon cans of trial and error, Talhofer said 800 years ago. Now, some of it doesn't translate, but a lot of it does. And so what we can do is we can take those concepts and have validation with them. We know that they worked for warriors in the past. And we can take that idea of, okay, this is a concept that is solid, it's used, and it's progressed. And we're the progression, right? There's been a dead link from 1500 till now. But now that link is being revised again. And our job, our hope, and really our responsibility is to progress that even farther. On a side note of this, we have to progress it farther. Because if we don't, we will die. The Western martial arts community is out there and they're hitting the books. They're hitting the books very hard. And they're drawing people away from a combat system that has been working for 40 plus years from us. Because, well, they can hold up the book, Talhofer. See, they did it there, we did it with this. We have yet to do that. So on my own personal crusade, look that stuff up. Be knowledgeable, right? Know who Fiore is, know who Talhofer is. And look for those similarities if you can talk about intelligence. Because really, that's what it's going to come down to. We have a lot to compete with. We have a lot of World of Warcraft people out there. We have a lot of kids out there that can go out and play with quote-unquote real swords or LARPing. Fireball. And resist, right. I can't add that fast. I watched that LARP thing, right, where they, you know, 6, 5, 6, a bass player. I can't add that fast. I could never play that game. So, but there's a lot of competition out there, and we have to keep our art valid. And a part of the way we can keep our art valid is by being able to articulate it well. You know? Why do you do this? Well, because he did that. Why do you do this? Well, because these solid basics work. And they work not only in what we do, but they work in a practical fight, they work in practical self-defense, they work in practicality for everyday use. And that's something that's very important that we can also talk about. So, we talk about measure and the fight. And we have to calculate, when we're looking at measure, our distance between our opponent and ourselves. There's lots of things that we'll do when we're in measure that a lot of people don't even think about when we start off. All right? So, let's see. Who's got one sheet in there? One of those heaters.
They're yours.
Tim, where's Tim? Sir, would you grab one of your shields?
Sure.
Thank you. So, when we look at fighters, nobody make fun of my large, huge heater shield, okay? When we look at measure and we look at the distance between our opponents and ourselves, one of the first things that we do when we walk into measure is we'll change our feet. All right? We'll stand out. I know. I'm not tall, so this is big. So if he's on guard here, and I'm at the edge of measure, I can't reach him and he can't reach me. Great. No harm, no foul. I can bounce around, do all my thing, you know, be in my stance, have a great time. But once I get into here, things change. Once I get into here, things change. Any fighter in any martial art knows that the closer you get, the closer the angles are, the closer things change. So, one of the things that we see a lot is we'll stay in this position. But the first target he sees is this and this. So, as a lot of fighters, what do we do naturally? take that target away. But that's something that we have to indicate. And it's something that we have to talk about and replicate why we're doing it. All right? Two things happen when we switch our feet. We take this first target away, and we get closer to them because now my shoulders are closer. So I have more reach. The edge of measure, I'm fine, you can't touch it. But once I close and get into measure, now you can hit it. And every time I take a step, I'm going closer and closer into danger. Because of that, a lot of times people will switch. They'll switch their feet here because that target is so easy to hit. Because of that, we have to adjust what we're doing footwork-wise. How do I step? How do I move? Do I ever cross my feet? The answer is no. And how do I work around what he's doing? So before we ever get to what the shield's doing, we have to look at all the spaces and how all the lines will change. Now, he's a little taller than I am, but not as much that it's going to make too much of a difference as I get into it. But you get somebody like, Quebec, who's this tall. The closer I get to him, the worse it is for me. Because he's got the high line. He's always got the high angle against me. So the closer I get to that fighter, the more danger the top of my head is in. The more danger this high line is in. So do I ever want to fight him here? No. I want to fight him here. Some people say, well, then you're out of range. No. You're just changing the angle. That's all. You're just changing the angle so you can cut it down and make it shorter. So then you can fight properly. Right? Especially when Quebec's on his knees, I almost look at my eyes. Really disconcerting. But, so when we do something like that, before we ever get into that measure, we have to figure out why we're going into it. And we have to look very, very carefully. Because what do we do? All right, salute, thank you very much. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Whack, 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 whack. And then somebody kind of dies at some point. A little? Yeah. Right? I get in trouble for saying this all the time, but there's a difference. We're using a sword, a blade that's meant to hit on the sweet spot. Everybody knows what the sweet spot is, right? It's meant to hit on the sweet spot. Not near the basket, not at the very tip, but about 3 to 4 inches down from it. All right? Harmonic balance in a blade is built to strike right there. Swords are not slicing weapons, they're hacking weapons. They're made from my 3 favorite words: blunt force trauma. And because of that, you have to be in the proper position to strike into that position every single time. It is, here's the part that I get in trouble for all the time, the difference between walking up and being knightly good and being pinata good. Are you just swinging a stick around to hit something hoping candy's going to fall out? Or are you actually executing what you're striking? So when you get somebody out there flopping with the sword, flat, 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 they say, how was that? Pinata would have done. Other than that, you couldn't kill a normal. Oops. It's the truth. We have to act as swordsmen. And to do that, we have to be able to position ourselves in measure. Distance isn't just about how far or how close I can get to my opponent. It's about how I can position myself in the best place to get the best angle to hit the sweet spot of the sword. That's extremely important to look at. And because of that, we have to look at a sleeve. Oftentimes we use kind of funny anecdotes to describe things, right? Like a pinata. Everybody see a pinata in their head and they see what it is, and we just talk about it, and you never forget that. I break my squires quite a bit because I think I'm funny. And a lot of times I try to, instill. When we move, when we change lines and angles, we step. Always. Whether you need to or not, we step. So, we have techniques that are called ear to ear. We'll go from this side, we'll drop it, we'll go to this side. We come back through, and we have to make sure that our stances are right. We're doing this. He's like, I'm just not getting this. I'm like, you ever see the Brady Bunch? He's like, keep on, keep on, keep on. He's like, oh, you did not just do that. And now every single time he does it, he grins like an idiot because he remembers it. Right? And now it's impressed in your brain. I'm sorry. Burned in there forever. So it's not just about how you understand it, but it's about how you communicate it. You need to talk to each other and how to do it. And all those ranges and things, those are great. Use them. Use the A range, B range, and all that stuff. It's great. But somebody was telling me, how do you describe the A range and the B range and the D range? C range and stuff like that. How's it go? Is it A in the very end or D in the very end?
A is close.
A is close and D is the farthest one. So this is D range, right? Defensive. That's how I always describe it. C range, can you see me? B range, be careful. And have you ever seen Finding Nemo? Right? The A range is what you cross. A. Never forget that. So, when we talk about measure, even when we're talking about Fiore, Talhoff, or even Aristotle's concept of those, we're talking about how those things change in space. And they're always linear, right? The distance from A to B, how fast or how close I can get, in what time I can get there, and how many angles change. If I go really, really fast through, it's going to be a shorter time to get through. In the medieval world, when they're talking about manuscripts, and they're talking about time, think of a stopwatch above your head. If I'm here and he is here, and I move first, my stopwatch goes on first. I'm always ahead on time. Unless he passes my attack, I'm always ahead. He has to catch up. And doesn't that always happen? Think about your fight. You go through, and the first person throws. Now they're always on the attack, and you're defending before your counterattack. They're always ahead on time. Unless you change the time. We change the time all kinds of ways. We'll throw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Double time. We just pass it. We'll change 1, 2, 3, hitch, bang. Extending the time. Because it's linear. Right? It's not relative, it's linear. So we draw the time out and we compress the time. But we use all that before we ever get to this. We have to use all that before we ever get to this. And it's important to remember that all that space in between you and your opponent is necessary. You have to use all that space first before you ever get to your shield. You can win a conflict. You can win a pass before you ever get there if you can use the measure correctly. Or at least you can bring yourself to the best advantage possible before you ever get into that fight. The fight does not start when you first make contact. The fight starts when somebody says lay on, and you just get to that edge of measure. Right? Once you're in edge of measure, now the fight starts. And how many of the higher ends will see? I want you to find this. How many of the higher ends you see? It's here, nobody touches each other. It's here, nobody touches each other. And it's here, right? What's going on in the air above them? I see you're using Frozen Monkey. I should use Jelly Dragon. I see you using Raging Vessel, right? It's exactly what's going on. Because they're gauging the distance in between them before the attack. And all those angles are happening, right? Because the angles change. If he's that tall, how tall are you? 6'4". If they're that tall, the closer I get to him, the more advantage he has at the top of the head. Right? And in our game, top of the head is dead. So we don't want to do that. In our game, top of the head is death. So we don't want to constantly change our fight to this. Because the more we do this, the more the rib cage is open, the more the legs are open, the more the hips are open. The farther I get away from him, this becomes a little bit better for me. A lot better for me. So every time we step onto that field, every time we step with our opponent, the fight doesn't start when we make contact. This fight starts in between that space. And how we can crush it. Questions so far? If you have one, ask. If you don't believe a word I'm saying, say it too. I'm okay. I have a firm philosophy of that. While I'm teaching, if I can't answer a 7-year-old, I suck. So, if you got a question, why? Why do you do that? I'll try to answer you. I'm a firm believer in explaining exactly why I believe what I believe and why it works and why it doesn't.
So if I talk it all the time. And I'm inside all the time. That's where I seem to have most of my success. Because he's not capitalizing on his angles. But when I have success, let me say, it's usually on the inside. So how do I, and if I stay in the range you're talking about, it just makes me how do I just, and I can't even reach up this big route. How do you
space as a waiting period so you can jump in? Are you not thinking offensively already out here? Right? Are you knowing that you're going to get better success getting this close to it? So you're just kind of waiting for an opening. And then you dive in. But sometimes when you dive in, you get dead.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times that's the preparation that we need to take away a little bit. Right? I don't want to look for a space that I can dart into and throw. And when you kill him, where are you killing most of the time? Top of the head? Up here?
Yeah, sometimes the head.
We want to try to expand what we can do with the shield and how we can fight with it. We want to expand how we can strike with it. Right? We understand the game. Top of the head, good force, is a kill. Right? You're authorized fighter, right? What is the SCA standard for an authorized harness? Armor. What is it? Top bottom.
So you got your joints.
Right?
Your neck.
Right?
Your vertebrae.
Right?
Kidneys.
Right? And you're wearing what over
Your
here?
helmet.
What are you wearing over here? Male halberd. Right? Chainmail halberd. Norm standard, right? Standard. Norman conicals, nasal, chainmail, drape, chainmail halberd, boiled leather armaments, right? So when we're hitting the top of the head, we're aiming for the only iron plate on the guy. That's plan. The only iron plate on the man. A broadsword will not go through a Norman conical. Period. Stop taking that No. Because that's not our game. That's not our tradition. That's not our game.
Stop taking headshots.
That's not our tradition. That's not our game. Our game and our tradition is a good blow to the head is a death. The reality is a broadsword will not go through a Norman conical. I've broken more swords than most of you have probably ever seen. I've broken more armor than you've probably ever seen. I do it more. Never put a blade through a helmet. Never. Sharpest, hardest, two-handers, never put one through. And the Norman conical is double ply because it's 4 plates with bands. So every 3 inches, it's doubled. You're not going through. You can knock it off, but brow and below is where you want to aim for. Yes, the top of the head will kill them. Absolutely. But isn't the better target here? Here, right here in what we call the gutter, because this doesn't skip. Everything. And everywhere else on the body is soft and squishy. That's the part we want. We want the squishy bits, right? So to utilize the shield best, to fight where the shield is weakest, we're utilizing every weak part of the shield. Every time we throw. And oddly enough, the shield is always strongest right where the Norman conical is. Because they don't worry about that part. Otherwise, they would have shields with a big roll over the top of it where you can peek out one side with your sword. They didn't worry about it. Period and examples of headwear and armor that we actually have from battles, which is very, very few, have nicks and gashes all over it. Because they didn't worry about it. Right? You didn't want to get hit there, but you knew if you got hit there, you were going to survive. Everywhere else, not so good. Not so good. And from 1,000 years of different fighting styles and periods and cultures, we really have an open kind of lab in how we can see how these shields fight each other, right? Without any computer simulation. We actually can see how these things fight each other. And that's really important to what we're doing as a fighting style, right? So when we are looking at our measure, when we're looking at our distance, we don't want the top of our head to get hit. It's kill. We don't want the rest of our body to get hit for sure. So we go into that distance very, very closely. And later on when we do some drills, we'll show you how important, I'm sure you know how important that is, but we'll show you a little bit about how to do that. And some of the drills I come up with are not difficult, but some of them are kind of mean. Mainly because you're not going to get hit a lot, but you're definitely going to have to work that shield side. So when we do take a break for a snack or something like that, stretch. Because after that, when we start doing drills, you have a shield in your hand. You must. Before we get to this, one other thing. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
See? Good man. Well, one other thing. If you are not fighting with both hands, do so. If you're not practicing everything with both hands, and you can't fight, with both hands. If you can't throw every blow on your offhand as you can do your on hand, do so. You must be able to fight with both hands. Every martial art in the world fights with both hands. Every one. Because of that, you must learn to fight with both hands. It's not only better for your perception, best way to, who's a right-handed fighter here? Almost everybody? Okay. What's the best way to kill a left-hander? Best way to kill a left-hander, what you got? Huh? A rat? What's the best way? A rat? Anybody else?
Offside.
No, fight left-handed. That's the best way to kill a left-hander. Fight them left-handed.
I can go with that.
And do bad things to them.
Cheating.
Practice everything you do right and left-handed. What if you have a student that's left-handed? They're automatically having to transpose everything in their brain that you're doing to the other side, making it much more difficult for them to learn. You must be able to fight both hands. If you're even pretending to teach something, if you cannot do it, it's very difficult to explain why it should be done. So you must fight both hands. The physical attributes to this is you will grow symmetrically. Alright? Typical SCA fighter is asymmetrical. We have big blocky muscles through here because we constantly use that to hold up a shield that weighs 4 times more than the sword. And this side over here is long and springy and athletic and has more endurance. And all of a sudden your spine starts doing this. And your neck starts doing that. You get up in the morning, you're cracking, you're popping, you're doing everything. And then after a few months, it could be on the pelt, fighting on both sides, that starts to go away. Because these muscles start loosening up because they have to stretch more. And these muscles start getting a little bit thicker because they have to worry about the weight as well, as the load of movement. And all of a sudden your spine and all your back and everything starts growing symmetrically. And you're developing symmetrically. Your spine's not getting pulled off to one side. Not a doctor, don't play one on TV. Everybody can see the logic in that, I'm sure. If you're wearing 8 pounds on this side for 20 years, this side's going to be bigger. No other way around. It's going to be less flexible. And as you get older, that's going to suck. This side's going to always take the torment. Going through elbow, rotator cuff, and shoulder surgery is not a rite of passage. Everything that you do should be done biomechanically sound. You should move the weapon, your body, and the shield biomechanically sound. If you are getting up, getting after fighter practice, fighter practice, easy. And you're tore up here, 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 doing it wrong. Your body's telling you you're doing it. It's not a rite of passage. I don't have to fight through it. I'm not going to muscle through it. It's wrong. It's just wrong. Fix it. Right? Fix it. But that's not a rite of passage. Okay? So we're going to get into this part first. Let me give you 5 minutes to get out and get some water. Come back and we're going to start talking about our shields. Okay?
You want some straight
lines and corners too. The fact of the matter is that if we fight and throw for the weak lines all the time, we're constantly making our opponents work. Constantly making them work to defend themselves. And what we want to do is we want to understand what they are, throw at them for those reasons, and use all of our other technique to manipulate them to make them weak. Alright? If somebody goes unguard, in an unguard position, they are their strongest. They're in prime position. They're in their best defensive position. Our job as the attacker is to get them out of that position so we can get and execute a good, solid blow and fight. This is a representation of the strengths and weaknesses of shields. And what it represents is the black line, black edges are the strong lines. The white are the weak lines. And so what we're always looking at is where the shield is weakest. For instance,
Now he chooses to join the left hand.
Well, sure.
Try that wrong.
Panic sign.
many times when we were fighting, one of the first shots, we watch a lot of videos. First of all, conical shape. We don't worry about that. What we are worried about is this corner right here. This is usually the first part of the meter that gets destroyed, yes? Right? There's a reason for that. It's because you always block everywhere with it. Because it's the strongest line in the top edge of the bottom. Next, here, and then finally here. Look at the tape lines. Darkest here. Here, and here. This is where the majority of the shield is blocked. Because this is where the shield's functionality is best. If I throw it here, it blocks it. If I throw the wrap, it blocks it. If I throw the leg, it blocks it. That's where the shield is strongest. Where is it weakest? Between the points. And anywhere the shield cuts down from it. Which means we change the trajectory of our attacks. We don't throw the flat snap straight on here like this. It doesn't work nearly as well once you get the shield out of the way. But with that looser grip, you must have a loose grip when you throw. Right underneath the veil, right into the skull. When I throw the leg, we try not to throw it this way. We throw down. Cutting this line. It's giving us the line to cut at. Cutting at this line. Now, I cut that line that way for another specific reason. Because everything that we train in school, we train for blades. Steel, sharp blades. If I cut this way, at a 90-degree angle, into a wooden object, sticks. This is a terrible medieval position. Sucks. So when we cut here, bang. Cut here, bang. It starts the same. Cut here for our Molinet. Everybody know what a Molinet is? Anybody doesn't know what a Molinet is? What's your version?
That's what, yeah.
Molinet is any cut that runs a vertical line. A Molinet is a vertical moving cut. In a granary or a windmill, the cogs run like this. The cog wheel, the driving wheel. The Molinet wheel runs like this and moves the cogs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Molinets run this way. So, the strong lines indicated here, the weak lines indicated, split them. Or not. Okay. Little fall here. Hang on. So when you're imagining the shield, and at the school we actually paint the shields this way. So you're standing there holding a shield, showing your opponent where all the weak lines are. Don't laugh, you're going to do it a little bit. Sucks. We have it up on the wall. I have a big wall with all these shields on there. It's great because the students will fight each other. Bang, bang, bang. And when they can't figure it out, they step away and they go. That's awesome. Because it's a constant visual reminder. Weak line. Weak line. Weak line. If I throw what guys call offside body, we call them a pendulum. Pendulum that falls, right? When I throw that pendulum, I know that I have to move that line to hit it. Only this much, but I have to move that line to do so. Now when we're fighting a shield, we're fighting a body. We have to remember that the shield is just part of them, right? They are moving behind it and everything else. Which means that this center line, right here, is very, very important to us. When I talked about we have to move this hard edge, if I'm going to throw that pendulum, and I'm going to step through here and throw that pendulum, I need to move that shield just a little bit to get in there and hit it. Otherwise, I'm just slapping it, probably flat. I need to move that line. How many times you come off the field and you heard somebody go, man, I'm trying that offside body, it's just not working for me today. Just can't get it work for me today. Watched some videotape last night. Just can't get that shot off, right? You look at it, you just stand right there. Thanks. You look at it, and they're throwing it from here. They're completely on the other center line of the body. So when they throw it into the best line he has for defense. The very best line he has for defense. When you line up to the Pell, when you get up to the Pell, You must line up to the pel properly. A pel is a practice post. Practicing is something that you repeat and process perfectly. You don't walk up to a pel and go, all right, pel, bang, bang. Not gonna call it pel. Walk up to pel, bang, 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 bang. Do you ever mind to look at where you are on the pel? And what shots that you were throwing because of it? When we line up on the pel, we walk up to the pel, we say line, distance, angle. Great. Here's my line. Front foot is now in center. Stance, distance. Nice little warm up to make sure I'm facing the weapon. And here we go. All right, throw my shot. When I want to throw on this side of the body, hand to the side of the pel, back facing the center line. Now I know I'm already on the side of the body, so if I'm practicing the pendulum, I'm on the correct side of the body to do so. So when I go out to the field and fight, and I see somebody working out there and they're going, bang, over there, like inside the center line, are you on? Oh, damn. Okay. Bang, it goes in. It's not working for you or them. They're not on the right side of the body to begin with. Always look down at your feet first. Right? Measure, shields, and everything that has to do with it starts right here. Everything works down from your feet first. As I said at the very beginning of our talk, most people will walk into their own death. 90% of the time, 99% of the time, most fighters will walk right into their own death. Right? So, we talk about the strength and weakness of it. We also talk about how that angle is important for it. He must face the weapon for this to be the most effective.
It's like this.
That's right, I understand. So, go hard. Okay. Go slow. And go ahead and hit me in the head. Right. So, to block that, you don't have to hit it. We should. Right. Go ahead, go guard again. So now I take my shield, I face the weapon. That much. Hit me in the head. Now you have to do something overt, don't you? So as I walk into measure, constantly walking into the line of the weapon, here, switching my feet because I don't want to give in that line, I'm constantly in defense already. I'm done in. I've set my defense, I've set him to do something. He must react to this before I ever throw a blow. He must react to the fact that I'm already in his way. If he throws straight in, flat snap, or anything else, my corner's already in the way. Doesn't matter what shield system I'm using. I'm facing the weapon. If he throws for an outside body, right? Most of the time the block is this. It should be his weapon. Alright, so you throw one over here. Throw the body over there, over here somewhere, and over here somewhere, and move this much. They've really got to start moving. You're making them do something overt by making the shield do something. Right? When we look at shields, and we look at their strengths and weaknesses, we have to memorize every single style. Right? Every single style. And so when we face that shield out there, we know that we're going to throw for the weakest line of that shield every single time. Who's got a round shield? This one? Whose is this one? Can I put a little piece of tape on?
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much, sir. Would you put... So let's just put a couple. This one here.
Be careful of any loose wires in the back of the shield.
Huh?
Be careful of any loose wires in the back of the shield.
It's electrified? That's cool.
That explains so much.
That's the duplicate.
Battery-powered shield. I need to find energy somewhere.
It's awesome. So when we look at shields and we look at their strengths and weaknesses, I just want to do this. Look at their strengths and weaknesses. Come here, you're going to come this way. You don't get that, though. No. All those house fire jokes, I'm not about to give you that. So, strap position. So I'm holding it here, right? I'm holding my triple strap shield. Doesn't matter where I have it here. I'm holding it up to block my head, right? There's the hard line, right? So if I'm standing in front of you and we're here and you throw it at my head, I have to do something avert to block it. Better. If he hits me in the leg, I'm going to turn it out into the black. If I don't move it or he does something overt, he throws to the leg, we climb. Every single time. Right? Every single time. So if I give you this, we climb, we climb, we climb. Now before you ask, we call these a magic button or the pivot point. Right? Pivot points are great because you can actually change and develop the line of the shield. If I push on you and he pushes back, I can't move it. I can't move it. I can't move the shield. Hold it. Hold it really hard. Tight as you can. Got it? Good. Every shield has one. All of them have them. So if I'm fighting and I need to stab him in the neck, what we call Frankenstein. Because we're on guard. I may throw something over here because I'm causing this.
Ouch.
Subtlety is your friend. And so the most subtle that you have, the more subtlety that you have in manipulating the shield, which we'll get into a little later, the easier time you have to open your opponent up. Most of the time, we stand at each other and whack at each other, and hopefully the shield's going to die. It never does. And we pound and we pound and we pound. I watched a couple of fighter practices, and I saw 2 shield manipulations in I don't know how many hours of fighting. Yeah. But when we are moving the shield and moving it around, it isn't just about where it's weak, but how can we make it weaker? How can we nullify it altogether? Right? But when we're facing each other, if we're facing straight on here, I want that line. I want that line, and I want that line. And if I can't get it, I have to move him. I have to move him, or I have to move that shield by pressure. It's not just about throwing at those weak lines, it's about pressuring those weak lines. And how we can make those lines work for us best. But if we're constantly throwing into the solid line of the shield, we're wasting time. We're wasting attacks, and we're letting them think of what they're going to do to us while we're in the middle of the fight. If we can look at the lines that we're cutting at. So when I step into measure, we start off, we're ready to go, they say lay on. When I get in here, as soon as I step into measure, I know I'm in danger. He can hit me in the lip right there. I need to understand that and realize it. So, alright, here we go. Now it's a little bit better. Cool. When I throw, if I'm going to throw for his leg, for any reason whatsoever, I'm always going to throw for that line. If I'm going to pressure to throw somewhere else, I'm simply going to bring it up and throw somewhere else. So I can bring that shield up and cut to the weakest line. We call this causing an effect. Everything you do will cause an effect. Whether it's something overt, like, throwing him here to get him to move and then coming through and throw the other side. Or whether it's something subtle, like pressuring here and throwing. Everything you do is causing an effect. And knowing where the weak line of the shield is constantly will constantly give you the best line to attack them at. Remember, this isn't about you. It's about what their defense is. It's about how you can overcome your opponent. To do that, you have to know the best lines to throw at and keep yourself defendable every single time you do it. Every single time. Questions so far? Come on, bring them, think. Yeah?
Typically when I throw for the weak lines like here, I find a lot of times my sword skips down their leg as opposed to actually finding enough room to cut into.
Okay. Yeah, come on up here. So, I'll grab it here. Grab whatever one you want.
That's about 4 days.
we'll see all of
I
you.
have the heater, and you're going to throw where? Right there. Okay. Cool. Now, how do they usually block it?
Moving just enough. to
This
where-
way? Okay. So let's switch. Okay. So, I'm causing something. I'm attacking him. He's going to block his leg. Good. Now, by angling that shield, say if I throw a wrap too, do the same thing. You block. Okay, here we go. We're fighting, you block. Good. What happened to the rest of the shield? Where else did it open up? There, there, and because the shield went sideways when you blocked it, you're now turning a 2-foot blocking surface. Go ahead and do it again. Into a 1/2-inch blocking surface. When we moved and he blocked, he didn't move his feet either. If he takes a little half step when he makes the block, he doesn't move his shield nearly as much. But because of that, when you throw in that wrap and it tilts and knocks off a little bit, that's fine. Depends on where you want to go next. If you throw and they block it, that's great. That's what's going to happen in a fight. You're going to one-shot everybody. But when you throw that and it does skip off, realize that because they had to go down and to their left, here's open, down and to their right is open. If you want to continue pressuring down here, it's open. What is open because you threw it there? Not, damn, that didn't work, go somewhere else for some other reason. It's bang, cool, I know the next one's open here. I know the next one's open here. Why is it open? What have you caused? What have you done? How many times have you heard that in your life? What have you done? It's exactly what you're thinking. What have you done? Alright? Because you're throwing at their weak line, you're making them do something. If he's on guard, he's in his best position ever. That's where he wants to be, man. Okay, so what am I looking at? I'm looking at this weak line, that weak line. He keeps his right leg forward. Go me. Cool. He keeps that thing open here. This shield angle should change every single time measure is changed. Alright? If I'm out here, I can hold it like this. But as I get in closer, that shield's going to come in a little bit. As I get closer, that shield's going to come in a bit. Because if it doesn't, that line's open. Correct? Think of the shield as the door to your heart. The closer danger gets, close the door before somebody rips it out of your chest. Right? And you'll hear us screaming on the sidelines, "Close the door! Close the door!" To the squires. I'm like, ah! Thank you. So, when you're throwing and you see these weak lines skipping or doing something like that, think of what you're doing to it, why you're causing that to happen, and how you can use it to your advantage. You have a word? No? Processing? Oh, you mean the points here? Shields can only be put on 2 different ways. Okay? They're either strapped or they're center grip. That's because people frown on nailing them to your arm. So, when you place these on, that's the weakest point in that grip, right? If you hold your arm out like that, I can push on here and push on here, but if I tilt your arm this way, it's locked. So does the tilt. Thumb always goes out, so if you thumb out this way or thumb out that way, it's always a lock. Your arm doesn't like to go that way. It's about subtlety as well. You want to manipulate that shield subtly. You don't want to crash the shield this way, crash it back like you see in the movies. It doesn't work. If they don't know it's happening to them, all the better. They don't know it's happening. You got questions?
Yeah, I don't know if I was jumping ahead, but is it all the same as well as something on their knees?
Yes. A lot of it is. The lines will change, and the lines will change depending on how tall you are, right? Especially compared to your opponent. So if I have one of these, do I have one of those? Here, I'll have this one. This guy. So if I have this, right? I should not use this shield. I'm not tall enough to use this shield. Because the weak line being here and here is all well and good, but I'm not tall enough to guard this line. Right? Havet can use this shield because he's 6'6". This is a horseman's shield. It was built to be on horseback. It's curved so you can look over the top of it while you're stroking peasants and going by. Good times. It's a shield from the year 1000. Right? The leg armor was scarce. And they stopped using the greave for a while. They used padded gamises. All right? Gamboa's cuisses. Padding and woven woolen batting into their wraps and their shins. And not much knee protection. So they had to have the long shield to come all the way down, and they rode it on horseback like this so they could see. But once you get on foot, all that dynamic changes. So we have to understand why the shield is like it is. What was it used for? And if you decide to use it anyway, accept those weaknesses and realize what their weakness is. I would never take the shield out against him. He'd crush me in the head, no matter how good I am. Unless I had a spear, and this was strapped on my back. 45. And he was sleeping. But the type of shields that we use have to directly influence how we're fighting with them. Right? If this shield is small and it's round and I'm short, my head's going to get crushed. The closer I get to somebody who's taller than me, the more, it doesn't matter if this is the strong line, it's only strong enough for me to block it to here. Past that, I have to use my sword for everything. And if I'm blocking with my sword, I'm not fighting, I'm blocking. I'm not attacking. Yes?
Than a shorter person?
A shorter person should use something with a corner on it. A shorter person should use, you know, a shield that's more maneuverable. That shield right there is this one. The strong line is at the very top, usually because you're on horseback or you're tall. Everybody tries to always blow through. How many people here have fought Quebec? Everybody tries to blow through the tail. Don't do that. 101 on how to kill a Quebec. Right here in the side straps, right here, good to go. But once the elbows and the body have to move, the shield starts getting weak because the more he has to tilt it, the more those lines will open up around his body, right? So, if this shield is weak up, is strong here, and I have to do that with it, now that line just opened up. You understand what I'm saying? If this is the strong line here, and I throw a rat or something over here and make him turn it like that, this just opened up. That's the next line I go for. Does that make sense? And the pivot point's the same. Always look for those bolts. Always look for the bolts. So yeah, if you're not a tall person, you know, having a shield that's very, very weak and not as mobile is really difficult for you. You know, you can still use it. Nobody says you can't. But understand that there are a lot of challenges for using a shield like that. A lot of them. Alright? And so using something lighter or more mobile. Now I'll give you something else. When we started using, and I know the aluminum versus wood debate. And I'm not a real big fan of aluminum either. My aluminum shield is 2-ply. Because I want the weight to be right. At that. And because this is my 4th indestructible shield, and I keep sending him back because his idea of indestructible and my idea of indestructible are not the same. What we did find, though, especially with our lady fighters, is that using a lighter shield ups the aggression by a good 80%.
Bear in mind, we have 50% of our population are ladies.
Yeah, 50% of our fighter practices are ladies. We run about 50-50. And so...
No, Lady Nike residents.
So, it's one of those where we go, my Squire Mullen, for instance, is 5'4" and a $110. Very small frame. And we had our wood shields, and she was constantly throwing and hucking the shield back up, throwing and hucking the shield, throwing and hucking the shield. We put an oval on her, center grip oval on her, aluminum, and her aggression level went through the roof. Because now she's constantly fighting and the shield stays put. She's not constantly losing her defense. She doesn't feel she wants to keep staying back up. And it shot through the roof. Big, huge shields like that, whatever. They can use them if they want to. But for smaller frames, smaller sized people, having a shield that is light, like it's supposed to be anyway, shields aren't heavy. Medieval shields were, you know, a ½ inch maybe, usually of linen wood, unless you got some Viking oak or something. But, you know, high Middle Ages shields weren't heavy. You know, they weren't meant to just to go through battle after battle after battle. You didn't go to, you know, fireplace, take your shield off here, son, this has done me well through the wars. You didn't survive. You know, we don't have, you know, but maybe 1 or 2, maybe, extant examples of fighting shields in the museums. They didn't survive because they were disposable. They were made to be disposable. So they shouldn't be super, super heavy. And I know people that will make things, this will last you your entire career. It shouldn't. It should be destroyed. We use a lot of things that are heavier than the actual period. And that's fine because we want them to last. We can't have a light, thin helmet that we only need to last 1 or 2 battles or 1 campaign. We use 12-gauge helmets because we want them to last for years. Medieval helmets didn't weigh 20 pounds, they weighed 6. If that. Medieval armor was light. It was even thinner in the arms. But because we want it to last, we make that trade-off, that's fine. But the shield itself should be light. And they say, well, I don't want it to get blown all over the place. Well, that depends on how you're blocking with it. For every weakness that the shield has, it has a strength. For every weakness it has a strength. And those strengths are what makes the shield work. So if I have a shield like this, doesn't matter how it's strapped, you can throw shots at me. And it doesn't matter what the weight of the shield is, if she throws for the leg and I block it like this, it's going to tilt. But if I block it right across the strong line of the shield as she goes, it's not. Because that edge is taking all the vibration through the shield. The shield's doing what it's supposed to do. Most shields were meant to catch edges. They're meant to catch swords because this is a sucky medieval position. If you catch it for half a second, you have that half a second to destroy your enemy. That's what they were used for. We have count after count after account of tournaments and fights where the shield was broken asunder by many heavy blows because he used it to the utmost, to block and let it get hacked away while he bought time to kill his opponent. And so when we use our strong edge of the shields, no matter what type it is, we want to use them to their fullest. If they're willing to line up straight on and throw at me in the corner, fantastic. I have all day to figure out how to tell it. But if I do something like this and pull it straight across, I have to account for that. I have to account that this is my weakest line, and I need to be aware of it. I need to position my body so where I don't have to worry about it as much. And just as the shield is weak here, it's strong here, that's where I want to use it the most. It's strong here, that's where I want to use it. It's strong here, and that's where I want to use it. So when that leg cuts in, bang! Rotate behind it. We should always rotate behind the shield and use those strengths. Like we have to memorize where it's weak, we have to memorize where it's strong. Know your equipment. Know every piece of equipment. And it's like going into a foreign country and learning their fighting tactics and their battle tactics and what type of weapons they're using. You have to memorize everything that they're doing. If they're coming at you with a center grip round, you have to remember, strong, 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 strong. Weak in the corners, and 3 pivot points. 3, at least. Because usually center grips are handled above center in the middle of them. I don't know what this one is. But a lot of center grips, especially the Viking extant examples that we have, the hole is a little bit higher than center. And so the hand is sitting here, a little higher than center. So this is a stronger line to it. Okay? You can still do it a lot, but this is a little stronger than the other ones. And I like opening doors like this a little better. I have the students open those doors up a little bit more. Because of that, you can utilize their shield in your fight. If you have somebody that's really good with it, they're sitting behind there and they're bang, 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 and you punch that sucker open, it's like pulling a screen open when they're in the shower, like, ah! Right? Not that you've ever done it. Maybe. Yes?
What about these spear fighters? They fight spear in one hand and sword in the other.
Very skinny shield.
Yeah. They spear in one hand and sword in the other?
He's talking about me now.
Damn.
The Madu
You need to
guys.
get that cock back, huh? The what?
The Madu guys, where are their tip points?
Peasant's weapon, shoot him. Anyway. Let me tell you a story. I don't know if you guys know Skippy from Kaigi. Setchiger from Kaigi. He and I called us. He said, could you foster him for a few months? He's going to be up there doing a job. I said, absolutely, have him come up. He comes in for fighter practice, and he's hauling his armor in. He sets it down, he goes back out. And he grabs a bunch of his weapons, and he sets it down, and his body falls out. floor. And he goes back out to get his armor, and I picked up the module, and I walked outside, and I threw it in the parking lot. He looks at it. Okay. No, so the color coding part of what we do with our shields, this isn't by happenstance. I color code everything. I use threefold for how we teach. And you can use similar types of things when you're talking with people. We talk about nomenclature, names, the pendulum, it looks like a pendulum. The Monet, well, that's what it is. It's always been called that. Right? You guys call it flat stand. What stances? Do you have a name for the stance? Do you have a name for your stances? Anybody?
Boxer, funny foot.
Funny foot, yeah. Surfboard stance.
Boxer.
Yeah. We use 4 stances: bladed stance, box stance, squared stance. You can check all 3. Bladed stance, right? My opponent's there, 90 degrees. Put my feet together. Front foot goes in the middle of the back. Step out shoulder width. Knees bent. You should always be able to pick up the heels. Your weight is always on the ball of the foot. We step always on the ball of the foot, never on the heel. If you can't explain that to somebody who's just starting off, you cannot explain footwork. Because they'll always wonder why. Right? Why don't I do it like this? Because I can't keep over it. And because I can't. So it's here. How do you check your feet? Scream at me. Check your feet. Front foot in the middle? Yes, good. On guard. There you go. Now when you move around, bang, bang, on the pedal, bang, bang, check your feet. Damn it. An easy, simple way to show your people how they can adjust their feet properly. Right? You watch videotape, people are coming up, they get ready to fight, and they get in there and get close, and they go, he's like, I was off balance for that shot. Wonder. My God, how did that happen? It's because this. I said, look down. Your feet will get you killed every time. Every single time. Now, when we teach as a martial art, we teach kicks. Because kicks are period. Medieval knights kicked all the time. They kicked the hell out of each other. Right? And we use the savate terms. So we use direct, chassé, fouette, because we see them all in the medieval manuscripts. Maximilian standing out there throwing a chassé to the top of this dude's knee and hammering him with a war hammer into the mud. Not a fun day. For him, yes, the other guy. Alright? Talhofer, Fiore, Pascal, Dürer, all of them show kicks of one type or another that are directly translated. So, not that we do kicks in the SCA. We don't want to do kicks in the SCA. We don't want to grapple in the SCA. We don't want to wrestle in the SCA. We don't want to do any of that because everybody's got to go back to their job. Oh, you don't want to. You don't want to because I don't want to be the guy, or I don't want to have a friend who's the guy that runs up on that kid who just got out of combat pay for 2 years off of Big and Sand and go to choke him out and watch him switch into survival mode and end you. Nobody else. Right? This is not that type of model. But what we do want is we want to have good, solid footwork constantly. So we can have a firing platform to use. We can't use the shield if we don't. So here we go. Come here. That certainly is.
Okay, we use this? I don't know this one. Is it okay to use that?
Can we use it? I like it.
No!
So he has no shield. Well, kind of does, but he has no shield. And he's got the butt thingy, whatever. And he's got the halberd up here, and he's got this. So you go into your fighting stance. Really? Okay. So fighting stance goes up, and I go in. Now, where is measure now? At the end of this hit, right? That's the threat. So my shield is going to adjust to how close the threat is. Am I going to be out here already starting off? Hell no. Closed. Already closed. Because that's the threat now, not him. Alright? So, here we go. That's the weapon. I'm going to face towards the weapon. This is the thing that I have to deal with afterwards. Or right along with it. So as I kind of inch my way in, we start to fight, right? Now what? Take the big sticky thing away, right? And I'm going to beat this until you let it go. All day long. Because this is the only thing you have in front of you. Now, when it gets in close, or get into here, we have to worry about that pokey thing and this pokey thing. Right? All the pokey things in the damn way. What lines is it giving me? That one. Right? The wraps don't really work because you can open it up. But this is still here. And if I still face the weapon, when I throw something like this, or this, and keep the shield in the way, now as the thrust comes through, right? Now as this comes through, and then this comes in, I'm going to hook and press and tilt and hook this thing constantly, right? Don't point that at me. Hook, press, move, bang. Too many times we look at where the strength and weakness of the weapon is. Any weapon. Like I said, I color code everything. This one's actually pretty perfect. Strong line, weak, especially on a sword because we never parry on the edge, we always parry on the flat. In my school, this would be red because it's an action. And right here would be white. Because this is the weakest part for him to hold on to. And controlling the tip on any side of this is really difficult. And so with my shield, I'm going to manipulate that as much as I can. Same thing with a spear. Oftentimes, would you grab that, Scooter? Oftentimes with a spear, right? Do you fight with spears? Yeah? Push your foot down. Here, you go and guard against him with a spear. All right. Is there a problem with that? You think? Oh no, don't do anything, don't kill each other. Just pose like somebody's taking a picture.
You maximize.
So smile.
A stack defense. Weapon, your defense, you.
Should have remembered that from our war.
If you're facing a weapon and he's got a shield side.
Oh.
Yeah. You have to fight both hands, right? You have to have both sides. That's the gap open up over there. That's where the angle of the weapon is coming over there. If I'm here, I'm constantly working against it. Constantly giving him a line for it. Doesn't mean I can't do it. Lots of people do it really successfully. This gives me the weapon in between us the whole time. So if I retreat, if I do anything else, right? Not to mention the fact, if you know me at all, you know what's going to happen when we get to here. Anybody?
You're going to move a shield.
I'm going to dagger you in the face. Often. Because a pole weapon should have a dagger. So I did center the shield. Whose is this? This is beautiful.
Tim's.
Tim, can I use this for you? I won't mess it up. I won't mess it up. Against what kind of shield? Pick one.
Any shield. I mean, if we're looking
Okay, let's do it against
a
a
strap on, strap shield.
Okay, let's do it against a heater. So, he's got it strapped here, I've got my shield. Now obviously I'm not going to do this, because I'm opening a door up that's just going to execute. But shield manipulations, there's a lot of different ones. And we can use a lot of them to our advantage without giving up much. So if I'm here and I know that I want that line there, I want that line there, I want that line there, if I'm where I'm throwing against the shield. For my shield as a manipulation though, if I'm always facing the weapon, that means my fist is always facing here. My fist is always there. So for instance, if he throws a wrap or something to the outside, I kick out and move myself just a little bit. If I want to manipulate the shield to throw that same Frankenstein, I'm going to turn as he returns. Hi. And I'm still facing the weapon. Right? I'm not tilting it all the way, I'm just holding it for a half second. I don't need to stop it, I just need to slow it for that half second. I need to extend the time just a little bit. A lot of times you see people do a blind with one of these shields. They get in there and do this, and then throw that blind up. It's very effective. The problem with blind is you're blind too for a second. But it can be done. Other shield manipulations are using the bottom of the shield. If they throw a wrap here, it doesn't matter. Throw a wrap here and you throw for the bottom of the shield to tilt the shield out as they return, they're going to freak, right? So as they freak and you go for the head, you're anticipating what you've done. You're anticipating what effect you've caused. You have to extend that time out just a little bit and think about what you're doing. He threw out here. I blocked. If I tilt that shield a bit and look at the head, fight. So that anticipation of what you're doing, why you're doing it. Reactionary fighting is fine, but there's always somebody that has a better reaction. There's always somebody faster. There's always somebody stronger. Right? And there's always a way out, yes.
So what you're describing is what my main frustration is. There's a lot of round shielders out here. There are a lot of advantages to a round shield against either. What are its weaknesses? How do I manipulate that?
Want to switch? Sure. So one of the weaknesses to a round shield is distance. What are the shields intended for? These shields were only done in Hungonga on personal duels by themselves. The rest of the time they were using the shield. The shield was built like this because it's got pivot points. Right? It's not so good out here. The farther out here, he has to turn and hit me. Right? He's got to move his body to hit me. If he just reaches out like that, I can see him. And he's got to open up here to hit me. He's got to move that shield around here. Fighting him here is his bread and butter, because now he's got all his shield. He doesn't have to move his arm very much at all. And I have to block for my life way up here all the time. But out here, a little different story. Now, we can look. Because the shield is heavier and it's bigger, it's going to react longer. It's going to take longer to react. Again, time. Right? So instead of going, bang, 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 he didn't move the damn thing at all. Instead of that, we extend the time just a bit. Move time. We let them move it. We throw at them someplace where they have to move the shield. Step around and throw someplace, and the more he has to move this, the longer it's going to take to get back. Instantly going in through this thing with an axe in your hand would be difficult. So they fuck them with axes because they go over the edge and hit them in your hand. But with a broadsword, it's a bitch. It's really hard. And somebody who's good and strong enough to hold this thing up for a while can do so. But to fight them here where they're strongest and they have the best leverage is helping them a lot. Right? All kinds of things you can do while you're in here to make them more uncomfortable, though. Hooking. Once you get inside that hook and keep that shield in here, he's got to move out of their way to get the shield back. That's one of the detriments of the center grip. Same thing with the other direction. Same thing with the tilt to the bottom. Every time you mess with that shield, you get somebody, in worst case scenario, you're on your knees, and you get that big hold knuckle dragger up top, right? What's that guy's name? Ethelred, yeah. Huge, dude. Bloody huge shield. Right, bloody huge shield, right? So you get up here and you close the door. Close the shield up. He's got this shield here. Start. Every time he gets close. Every time something happens. Every time something happens. We'll let him get there and get comfortable. Hammer that thing. It's a shield. We get to hit those. We don't hit each other with the shields. We don't touch each other with the shield. Rule is, you don't touch me with your shield and have them kick you in the ding-ding. Okay? Simple enough. Incidental contact or no. Hell of a front kick. You should be able to fight within the game. Thank you very much.
Do you like strength to something?
What?
Are you liking the strength of the shield on a center grip?
No. Strength of center grip is in its leverage and keeping it straight here.
But I'm talking about when you're manipulating.
Oh, yeah.
So you're using, basically keeping it in line with
Yeah.
where the thumb is.
Yeah,
To use
exactly.
That edge to talk
Punch it back.
Just like a spear.
Exactly like a spear. Right.
Around.
So we color code everything. We color code the shields. We color code the swords. Welcome to the West. We color code swords.
That killed me at crap.
We call it Rolfing the sword now.
Rolfing the sword.
Fell over that. Yeah. But we color code everything, especially for the students to learn. Say, no, don't parry on this. Parry. When you throw your foreguard, or what do you guys call it? The foreguard, the function. Shouldn't be here. Two reasons. Number one, I'll block on the edge, sword, blade, approach. Number two, if it's already here, when you turn it over, I don't have to. When you throw in your offside body, bang. If you're not physically rolling your fingers inside to make that do this, you're hitting the button. Use that. It's almost physically impossible to be able to hear this and hit on it. Unless your hand is super high, you're a freak of nature, you can do that. You're not hitting it. Retape your sword, tape it perfectly. Go fight all day, look at it. Your sword will line. It'll tell you where you're hitting. You know, some people can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but if you're going to manipulate a blade right, throw, roll, strike. You can do it fast, throw, roll, strike. But you've got to have that. You got to see that cross roll. That's why we hold it. Lorenzo says we hold the weapon as if we hold a small bird. Tight enough to where it can't fly away, but not too strong to where it crushes and dies. We use bang, we use some bangs, we use bang. And we act upon these weaknesses all the time. The bunny round, there's a couple people that still fight bunny rounds, right? My knight still fights with bunny round. This is a jousting shield. That's why they live on their legs. They live on their knees because this was never meant to block their legs. It's a jousting shield. It's the only extant example we have of this shape. It's a jousting shield. So blocking your legs sucks. Devin? It sucks. You live your whole life on the ground, on your knees if you're fighting with this shield. Even Ragnar, who fought with it for years, lived on his knees. You didn't want him there, because then you could never get him out. But it's how he is Connor, my knight. The last thing you do is want to leg that guy, because he can live there all day. Bryn, same thing. So when we look at our shield styles, we look at the strength and weakness of every single one of them, and we memorize them and throw from the strength and weakness of everything. Of everything. Now, measure, when we first talked about that, that all plays into this. Right? You can pressure people with just your body, with your body language, with your body motion. Your sword is not going to fake them out. Your sword isn't going to fake them out. Your body and how you step into measure. That's the real head fake here, folks. The shield isn't your first defense. Measure is. But all the fancy stuff in the world is not going to fake them out. Right? How many fingers am I holding up? Quicker than the eye. Always will be. Always will be. But if I take this sword, and you go on guard, and I go on guard, and where I throw, you put your hand. Okay? So if I throw here, you put your hand. And if I throw here, you put your hand. If I throw here, you put your hand. And then I start putting body to it. See this, not this. Alright, so when you start to fight, guard here, right? How many people have you gone? It's not just for fun.
Just to get
Right?
the game.
Because they go, you can start manipulating shields, manipulating their strong and weak points just by how your body reacts to them. Just by how you influence them with your motion. If I'm here and I'm really crouching this side, it's screaming to his brain, whether he knows it or not, down and to the right. And just by going from here to here, now it's up and to the right. And if you do that in motion, right, you're saving yourself all these blows because you're pressuring them with just you. They're going to see this. They're going to see this. And you're pressuring them. So you're not trying to pound through everything. You're actually trying to fight, find your opening, hit the sweet spot, and achieve the first and only principle of a martial art. To strike and not be struck. That's it. And as I tell the students, to do that, all you have to do is master time and space. Yeah, you know. Once you get time, the space in between it, and you start using the line, then finally, geometry has saved your life.
Those are your practice.
Huh?
Those are your
Eponymous. I'm a bass player. I don't even know what that is. That might be an animal.
You got it, found it?
Oh, yeah. So, when we're looking at these, and after we take a break, we're going to come back. When we come back, we're going to go out here and get just shields and helmets. That's it. Shields and helmets to start off with. We'll do that for about an hour. Then we'll go ahead and get in armor and do bad things to each other. But to start off with, we'll take a break for... What do you want to do?
10 minutes or 2 minutes?
Okay. When we come back, we'll put on helmets and shields, and we're going to do a lot of shield work and blocking. And we're going to look really closely at where the strength and the weakness of every shield is, what you're facing and why you're facing it. Remember, if you're just throwing with your body, if you're just thinking what you're doing, you're only creating half the fight. Be knowledgeable. Be knowledgeable about everything that you're facing, so you can speak articulately about it, if nothing else. So you can understand it and actually execute what you're doing and then explain it to somebody else what you're doing. Otherwise, it becomes this great mystery all the time. I just don't know how it's done. Well, you got to work on that a little bit. Okay. How do you just work on that a little bit? Right? We call it the Saturn theory. Right? Anybody know Sir Brand? She's a knight in the West, Sir Brand, right? When Bryn and Fabian were together, Fabian was trying to teach her a rap when she first started. Could not get it. And Fabian has an attention span that long. And he speaks in, okay, you do this, and then it goes like this, and then... Really? That's your answer? Okay. We have Connor, because he speaks Fabian. Connor, look at Connor. He says go faster. Oh, okay. So Fabian's trying to teach Bryn this rap. Cannot get it. Will not get it at all. Took 2 years, right? And she's pissed, and he's even madder. He can't teach her. He's like, I can't show it to you, can't show it to you. 2 years later, Richard of Alder Tree, is talking with Brady. He said, the rap, the rap is simple. Think of it this way. I am Saturn, and these are my rings. And she goes, oh, okay, I get it. And Fabian loses his mind. I'm Saturn, and these are my rings. That's how you rap. I'm serious. And he's lost his chicken. How many times did it happen to us? Somebody says, you know what? You're stepping wrong. You're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. 2 years later, somebody says, you look like a clown on a tightrope. Oh, I'm stepping wrong. Right? Happens. It does happen. But if we have a good terminology, we can avoid some of that mystery. We can actually talk intelligently. Are you throwing for a weak line? You're throwing directly for where that shield is strong. Do you see that? I do. So we practice on the bell. A little bit overboard. You got to squeeze in there a little bit better. Get your angle a little bit better. Are you standing on the right side of the body? Are you doing those things you need to do to execute where that shield is the weakest? I don't want to teach you how to fight. I can't teach you how to fight. What I can show you is a really logical, very plain way to look at the defenses of the opponent. And the defense of the opponent is what every martial art is based on. Every martial art. And we can use our skills and our basics, however we develop them, to these commonalities. Shield's always going to be weak there. It's always going to be strong there. And if it's strapped this way, it's always going to have that. That's not going to change. How we utilize it, a lot different for our own personal fighting styles. But we can look at these things and see, okay. Now, by the way, you can use this. Take this to your practices. Use it. This is fun. Part of this is my opus. Part of this is, decades and decades of me going through a lot of training and dedicating a lot of my life to understanding the martial arts. And one of the things that I love the most about the martial arts is how it affects the body. And because of that philosophy, I really believe that we, as a group that are attempting a martial art, should be knowledgeable about it. And we should be able to talk about it and understand what each other is saying. And when we look at these things, it makes it harder. It really does, because if you know this, now I have a problem. I have to be a better fighter, because you're not automatically going to be throwing into my strongest point all the time, right? Especially for the advanced fighters here. How many times have you got up to a new fighter and have this really cool fake, and just wooga, wooga, wooga all over the place, and their socks should be over there. You should have faked them out of their shorts. They should be sitting over there somewhere, and you slam it directly into the middle of their shield because they had no idea they were under threat. Standing there just happy. Bang! Right in the middle of the shield. You're like, what do they do right after? Whack! It hits you in the head. Because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Right? They had no idea they were under threat. Because you're developing something that didn't need to be there in the first place. Hit them in the head, they'll die. Right? Kill them, they'll die. It's that simple. So, but this takes a lot of practice. This takes a lot of thought. You know, and you have to look at it, not this. This isn't the silver bullet. There isn't one. You have to look at your own stance. You have to look at where you're standing, on which side of the body. You have to look at how you throw. Are you doing that effectively? Your economy of motion, is it good? And how much can you affect this? What can you do to it? Because the truism is this is true. This is the strong arm of the shield. If you throw it at somebody here, here, and here, you're never going to kill them. If you throw it some angle off of that, you will. How many times can you do it? Right? How many times can you do it? And can you do it and effectively every single time and be creative from it? Right? That's my job. My job is to give my students all the foundations so they can create and be a better fighter than I am. Because if you're better than I am, I don't want to get better. Vicious circle, vicious circle. Okay? So let's take till quarter after, and we'll come back with helmets, shields, and weapons.
I know we had you guys